everyone, and welcome to Tap Into Your Creativity. I am so excited because we are, for the first time, I'm able to be in an artist studio after COVID.
No masks.
We both have been vaccinated and we both tested negative, so this is my dream coming true. I've been waiting for this moment to happen, to actually be here in person with the artists, because there's nothing better than to be inside their studios and to be so incredibly enamored by their inspiration and process. And you will find today that Louise Fitch, he is my fellow Mexican. We both live in Minneapolis and we connected recently, and you are in for a treat. I am so excited to introduce to all of you Louise Fitch, and I'm actually kind of nervous. I haven't done this.
You sound extremely professional to me. I was like, wow. Well, thank you for having me here. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And welcome to your house.
Thank you so much. So, Louise, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, and just a little bit about your background.
Well, I was raised in the most visited border in the whole planet, Tijuana, Baja California. That's just across from San Diego, 15 minutes from San Diego. And in the early 80s, like any other kid, or in the 70s, I used to draw and paint, but I never professionally did any fine arts. And so I decided to do graphic design and architecture, and then went from San Diego to LA and study at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. And I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design, travel around the world working for advertising agencies and marketing agencies. But I've always painted, and so it's in my blood, painting, and never went to school for it, but I try to practice it as much as possible.
And so let's go back to Tijuana in your younger years. Were your parents involved in the arts? Were they supportive of you exploring that part of yourself? How did that even start for you?
Yeah, in the early years when I was 4 or 5, my mom gave me 2 books, one of Pablo Picasso and then another one of Salvador Dali. And so one was very surreal, Salvador Dali, and then obviously Picasso, from being super realistic when he was a kid all the way to Cubism. And that freedom, really, it's when, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, this is the guy, right? And so I devoured those 2 books, and I still have those 2 books. But it wasn't later until I was 11 or 12, we went to an exhibit in Balboa Park in San Diego, and it was an exhibit on Picasso. So for me to see the paintings for the first time, I was just blown away. I wanted to touch them, and obviously you couldn't, but I really was just so impressed that I start copying his paintings, basically. And I'm still influenced directly or indirectly from Cubism and Picasso. But then, you start traveling, you start learning about other painters and whatnot. And the first time when I was 16, 17, I went to Mexico City. And when I landed at the airport, right on the airport, there was an exhibit on Rufino Tamayo. And I was like, I was familiar with Tamayo, but when you see it in books or paper, you can't see the texture, you can't see the sands and all these different things that he utilized in his techniques. And I was just blown away. I couldn't sleep. Like I was just, I needed to go back to Tijuana and start trying to imitate the technique. And I didn't understand why, but it's, if you live in Mexico, there's textures everywhere. There's in the walls. We don't tend to refresh our house painting it every year like here in the United States. So I always grew up with soils. I used to play with my cars in the sand, and so I've been incorporated for more than 38 years or more into my work. And so I mix media. We'll get into all that. But I use a lot of sand, pigments. I even use coffee when I don't have any texture. And then I mix it with glues and gouache and acrylics and oils.
So, for you guys, if you haven't been to Mexico or Mexico City or Tijuana, it is, like you said, the textures, they're so visual, and you don't need to touch them. You can just by looking. It's such a visual, incredible way of, just learning about color, texture, saturation, values, design. There's all these kinds of things that are happening at the same time, because it is so jam-packed with everything. So next time you go, pay attention and literally just sit down in a bench and just look, and you will be just so coming back so full of an incredible culture that we are so fortunate to be a part of, and we are so proud of our heritage and of who we are as Mexicans, and we couldn't be prouder of that. And I think that Luis, for what he's saying to us today, is that where he is today is very much rooted in his Mexican heritage.
100%. That's true. Yeah. And it's not just the texture, it's the color, it's the environment, it's the food, it's the music, it's all these different things that is so Mexican and makes Mexican, culture a universal thing, not just in Mexico.
Yes.
And the festivities like Day of the Dead now, it's like almost as big as Halloween in the United States. So we're influencing a lot culturally.
Cinco de Mayo coming up.
That's right. Tequila, cilantro. We could go on and on and on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but because we're so far away, we're up in the north, we miss that. And so I like to surround myself with this Mexicanness. And it's not just 100% Mexican. You start being influenced by other things. Picasso wasn't Mexican, but you can see Tamayo being influenced by Cubism 100%.
100%.
Right? Yep. And then he Mexicanized it, if you want to, and then create this universal language. But then you have people like Toledo, then all the school of Oaxaca, and you can go even deeper with indigenous works of different parts of Mexico where they utilize what they have available in their
Well, if we really go back and we look at the Mayan and the Zapotecs and the Aztec culture, they really utilize their daily lives, and they put it on their pyramids, on their murals, on all these things. So the history is so rich, and that would be a whole different interview, because we would go into
that's right
a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, I think that I bring my roots to my work as well, and so now you're 18 years old, and I believe you start architectural school.
And I went to a public school where it's junior high school, where I met my wife Carolina, and there you have to take a technical class, and in my case, the closest to drawing or art was technical drawing. And there you learn how to do perspectives, and it's like 101 for architecture. So I learned the basics of architecture, and you have to draw with ink. So it was very, very tedious and very clean, isometric views, all these things that it was not art, it was technical.
And at that time, I'm thinking you don't have a computer or an iPad or any of that,
no,
right?
That's
so
like, yeah. No. I was 13, I was 12, 13, and 14, I believe. And And so I was very influenced by architecture too, and so it was a mix of three-dimensional drawings and experimenting, with textures and patterns. And I had I competed in junior high school for the first time when I was in first grade, and with this little abstract painting, and I didn't know what I was doing, but it was very abstract and with a lot of symbolic information, and the title was just like, whoa, right? and you make the connection. And I competed against all these kids who draw like Jesus and politicians, extremely realism. That their parents were helping them because it was just, and so I said, well, I'm not going to win. And they picked me first place to represent the school against other schools, and that was it. From there, I represented Baja, and then Mexico. I went to Mexico. So I was traveling with this little painting. And what I learned from that is that you really don't have to paint realism for people to accept what you're communicating. You can be more abstract, more symbolic. And it's really my influence of what I had with Cubism and Picasso and the surrealism of Dali.
Yes, and I think that
at that stage,
non-objective art, which is an abstract type of work is it has its own language, and you can create. That's the beauty of being a non-objective artist, because you can create your own language as long as you have all the elements that are in a non-objective art, which is, you know, lines, geometric lines, community of events happening, a repetition, a rhythm, you know, color, value, saturation, all of that. And so as long as you know, you have your own language of non-objective art, I mean, there's no limit. Everything is limitless, right? You can just explore and go wild, and you can have your own little world, and that is the beauty of
most definitely
of that.
That's right.
And so
right.
As long as you understand it, I
That's
think
all.
it can come across. Then you need to know what you're doing. You need to understand your work in
That's
order
right.
for others to understand your work. So as long as you're clear with what you're doing, then everyone else will follow.
Of course.
So, okay, so then what happens?
Well, we moved from Tijuana to San Diego, and I went to study to the New School of Architecture. It was this postmodern group of architects teaching young students what was happening in Southern California. It was very postmodern architecture. They're grabbing from everywhere and remixing it, and I was really attached to that, because to me it was like fine art, three-dimensional architecture.
Right.
But man, I was influenced by Luis Barragan, all the, you know, the
Yes,
Mexican
yes,
architecture. So
yes.
and mixing the colors of the brightness of Tamayo and the textures that Barragan utilized in his work.
Facades, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that didn't work, because they called me one day and they say, you know what, you're really, really good at drawing. You're really, really good at doing perspective. Your technical ability for perspectives and all. So the creative side was incredible for them, but English was terrible. I didn't know how to write or speak at that time. Still, I don't. In math, I was terrible in math. So they suggested, instead of paying so much, that I should go to like a city college where I don't have to pay that much and take my general classes. And so I did that, and there I discovered graphic design and communications. I've been doing fine arts and illustrations for posters and logos and things like that, but without knowing it strategically what I was doing. I was just doing it because I guess I was getting known for doing those kind of things. But it wasn't until I went to San Diego City College and met the dean, Charles La Greca, that he really separated me from the group and say, here's a couple of freelance projects, and you know, so I started to understand the business side of design and communications and illustrations, how to promote not only my art, but how to market it. And so
that is so important. You just touched on a very important thing that I think that now more than ever, kids need to learn that.
Of course.
Coming out of fine art school, you know, when I came out in '92, I didn't have the skills. I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't know anything about business. And I think now it's the key element of going, especially as a fine art major, you really need those skills.
Oh,
you really need to
definitely.
learn them, and you really need to ask your professors and you know, to get educated in that, because you will use it. You will, it will be something that will help you in your future.
Most definitely. And so balancing a check, opening an account, invoicing people, all the basics, right? And we didn't have at that time still. We don't have emails and computers and whatnot. And so everything was by hand. And so because of my 3 years of technical drawing, I was very clean with layouts and things like that I started freelancing for these large agencies in San Diego. And I was doing the bottom of the work that's mechanicals and key lines and things like that. But they were paying me extremely well. And then I was doing my freelance. I was doing a lot of illustrations for editorial work and local newspapers, and doing brand identities for entrepreneurs in Tijuana and San Diego, or bilingual communications. And it got to a point that I was growing independently. And my mentors that I had at least 4 mentors in San Diego. All of them went to the same school, and they keep saying, Luis, you should not stop. You got to go to this school. And that school is called Art Center College of Design. So one day we went, and I was just blown away. I knew I couldn't afford it. It's extremely expensive. And I submitted my portfolio, the work that I had at that point, and they allowed me to go with a school fellowship. And so I didn't have to pay that much. I just needed enough money for transportation and food and to live with my roommates. And so I did a 2-year program. And once I graduated, I had offers from all over the world and decided to continue my branding communications. And later, 20 years ago now, living here, Carolina and I, we started Uno Branding, and that's our multicultural communications.
It's UNO branding, so you can look it up. His work is incredible. He's done amazing work for big, huge corporations, merging and helping Latin American culture kind of make a big interconnection with Americans. So
that's correct.
I think that is incredible, and all the work that you've done for that. So now that we are here today, and literally you started you're going back to your roots. You started painting, you started experimenting, and then you put a pause into it because you started, putting all your energy into Uno.
That's right.
And then the pandemic hit.
That's right. So, I mean, even in Uno, it's driven from with culture first, and then art, and we do a lot of illustrations and still photography. And even our graphic work is very Mexicanized, if you want to, or Mexican contemporary, or cross culture, as you were mentioning. But so I always try to incorporate architecture, spaces, retail communications, murals, and so the art has always been there, but not my personal art. So there was a touch, but you got these creative briefs where you have to meet those creative briefs, and it's got to be this size, it's got to be this painting, it's got to blah blah blah. With this work, it's personal. And I always have a little corner somewhere since I was 5 years old. Right. Since I remember, I had a little place.
And you had it in your basement.
I had it in my basement here. And so the problem that since I was a kid is that we moved a lot. And that's one. And two, I've always liked to throw paint and use sand and sprays because I didn't know what I was doing and still don't know what I'm doing. I like to have that liberty, and I've never had it. Never had that liberty to be able to throw paint the way I wanted and experiment and let it dry and come back to it next day and sand it, and it's dusty and it's crazy. So every apartment that I rented, I lost my deposit. Every place that I lived, they didn't want me back again. So it was tough. And finally, we bought a house here in Minneapolis, and I've been living here for 18 years now, and the basement became my studio. But really, I wasn't painted that much because, again, the fumes and the dust and all this stuff, and we noticed that it was going through the air ducts, and it was just all over the place. And so I stopped, and rarely I would go down there and do it. But anyway, so last summer I decided to do the studio. We had a decent amount of space in the back, and never been utilized for anything else. And a friend of mine and I and my son started doing research on how to build this, and we created this studio. And it's basically a 10 feet by 20 feet. That's the limitation for Minneapolis without getting any permission to the city. So you can build it and don't ask, the government would not mess around with you if you're in your limits.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And the biggest problem was winterizing it, right?
Right.
I wanted to make sure. So we did all the research and winterized it.
We have very cruel winters here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I mean, we could spend 2 hours just on the studio, how to build a studio, what kind of lightings, the whole thing.
We'll do a part 2.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
One day.
Let's do a part 2.
But here we are. And so, I had a little break in December. I was mentioning this before. And during that break, December to January, at Uno we finished a couple of large projects, and I decided to utilize for the first time the studio. And I was extremely nervous because I haven't painted for so long, and I took all my old work and put it out, and it's just like starting to exercise for the first time, right? Yeah. It's like nobody wants to exercise. So I had all these white canvas in front of me, and I was just scared. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to make sure that I still had that feeling that I've always had in the past. And so I just started buying materials. I go a lot to Home Depot and Menards. That's hardware, for those who don't know these brands. And whatever's inexpensive for my materials, I use a lot of house paint, oil paints, anything that is people return.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Instead of like $20 or $40, I just
Exactly.
And I buy a lot of glue and I mix that. I collect sand from my travels. I collect burned wood from different places. It's just a collection of materials that I utilize and experiment. And so I started small. And I liked what was happening, so I feel that I still had it. And then I started experimenting, and it's not really experience because I've been doing it for so long, but it's just kind of remembering what I've done in the past. And now it's like I decided to do 100 paintings during that month break that I had, just to see if it was a challenge for me more than anything. And I like to work, in series, so I can paint, 10 in a row,
right.
Let it dry and start the other one and come back to it and do my sanding or whatever and retouching it and hide them, put them away, and a week later come back. And if I'm happy with them, I don't even sign them until they're gone out of the studio. But if I'm happy, I leave them. But most of the time I'm not. There's another layer, in layers, and I can sand them in another layers of discovery. So I'm always touching and messing around all my paintings.
So it's funny that you talk about layers and you talk about all the materials, and it is a very personal work, mm-hmm. because you're finding all these materials that are important to you and in your journeys, and you're putting them back into the painting. And I think that connection takes you to a whole different level of your painting, and really your artwork becomes one. You and your artwork become one. And Luis has not shown this work. This is our first time that we actually are going to get the chance for all of you to see it. So I'm going to take you around and show you this incredible studio that Luis created for himself. And you're going to see his artwork, and we're going to talk more, and you're going to be able to see all the textures and compositions that he has for us today. And at the end, he's going to show us a little bit about his process and show us his favorite materials and how he uses all his textures. So stay tuned, because you don't want to go anywhere. This is amazing. So I'm going to go around and get the phone, and I'm going to switch it around. So bear with me for a second. Okay. All right. So here we go. Okay. So we're going to start. I'm going to just give you an overview of the studio. I'm going to go all the way back here. And as you can see, I'm actually going to go outside so I can show you his studio from the outside, what Luis has created. So Luis, if you want to talk to us a little bit about your studio, that'd be great.
So like I was mentioning before, the limited size is 10 feet by 20 feet. And then we got to get away from our neighbors enough feet, I believe, 10 feet. And then you're set. You can do whatever you want, basically.
Right.
In this case, what was difficult for us, it's the
leveling the ground.
Leveling, exactly. It's just, it's going down dramatically. It's hard to see, but the hardest work for us was to make sure that the base, and that's where my 3 years of technical drawing comes in, right? I knew what I needed to do.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but with the help of my friends, we were able to...
and you have a beautiful ramp here that takes us into the studio.
Handicap accessible.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
So...
this is the exterior.
Yeah.
Sun comes through there. I don't need that much sunlight. And so it's a very limited space, and I think that's the reason I'm painting small. I tend to paint a lot bigger than this, but now that it's spring, I can paint outside, and if it rains, I just bring the art inside. And so I'm gonna work with this type of textures and subject matter in a larger sizes, and obviously from working outside instead of in here.
So can you talk to us a little bit about your subject matter, and we can start here and then go around And,
Well, let's start over here because
Sure.
this will be interesting for you guys. And this, nobody has ever seen it.
Okay.
So I have a collection of drawings since I was 4 and 5 that my parents and I had saved. And so, like, more being influenced than Tamayo, more than influenced by Toledo, more being influenced by anybody else, I'm really influenced by kids' art. And so I was able to rescue all this art that I did when I was 4 and 5.
Oh my gosh.
And it's interesting, you're going to
What?
laugh.
You already have perspective there?
Look at this, Pemex. Gas Pemex.
Oh my gosh.
So this is 5, 6. And what I like is to revisit some of these and how naive, this bird looks like. And it might be an inspiration for me for a whole painting, or the cat. It's like
Oh my
I had no
gosh.
reference. The cat was just,
Right.
and I like to continue that naive. And then when I had my son, well, he started to draw too, right? He doesn't like art or anything. Matter of fact, he's my worst critic. He is like on top of me. But what I like is how he is starting to, that same age, I compare myself with the age. And so I incorporate drawings from kids, folk art. This is, early stuff in school.
Wow, I can't believe your parents saved all this for you.
Me and them, This is later. This is when I was in junior high school. But my point is that I have all these drawings by years, and you can go when I was 18.
Let's look when you were 18.
18, 19, what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is the kind of stuff that I was drawing or painting. I don't know where my head was. Values, right?
Wow, the grayscale, there
Right.
it is.
This is more conceptual. There's a little pyramid, and who knows what's going underneath that. So these are quick sketches. We're talking about surrealism.
Look at your mark making there. Wow. Wow, that's
But
where
look
it's
at
starting
this.
to. Yes. Oh my God. And look at that. Like, it's just.
This is 84.
Wow.
So they're starting to feel really, Mexican. For
Very
me,
much so.
At least.
Yes. And
this
the
is-
colors, the
yeah.
color combination.
And these are sketches, but this is how I used to paint. So I was painting on canvas on wood, like this. These are more probably from classes and influenced by different people.
That's so cool that you have this to go back to. I mean, what a recording.
This is my studio.
Oh my
When I was
gosh.
18, and I still have these masks.
Oh my gosh.
Part of my Mexican mask collections.
Wow.
So that's 84, yeah. Mi cuarto. My room. You can see the paintings, the sizes that I was painting.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really nice to keep these and document all that. So it's something that I do with kids' hands. I don't know who it was, but
Wow.
But anyway, so I have it by years.
Amazing.
And it's
What a
important
treasure.
right? I mean,
What a treasure for you to
and
have
it's
that.
really interesting because it's you
Yes.
can see the whole
Yes.
at least the sketches. Paintings, I have a few documented, but a lot of people in San Diego and Tijuana who collected my work, they still have those pieces because there was a lot of when I was 17 to 25. They did a lot of paintings in large format, and people have them in their houses. But going back to this, so yes, it's the subject matter. It really what I was saying before me coming into the studio and not knowing what to paint. I really don't have any excuse. One of the things that I do is sketch every day, even when I was extremely busy. I have these kind of sketchbooks, and I'm sure everybody does this, but I have them all over the house, in my office, in the car. So anytime that I'm waiting or whatever, and these are quick sketches. These are like 10 seconds, 40 seconds, and they become quick studies. Then later, there's no excuse
Right.
for me to paint. It's like, this, and luna llena or luna menguante, whatever. I can just change the moon if I want to. I can change the fruit if I want to, or if I want to just do it exactly. It becomes a painting. So I do a lot of this sketches, and I have literally hundreds of these sketchbooks. That's one thing that I've been doing since I was super young. The other thing too, when I travel, I send myself a postcard. So when I went for the first time to Mérida, Yucatan, I draw my feelings, and send it to myself. And so Paris, Washington, D.C., Nashville, Tennessee,
wow,
Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, and I mean, I can go on and on. And so Milwaukee, you can see the influence of architecture at Milwaukee Museum.
Wow,
Calatrava.
I love this. You almost, this is like a recording of your...
100%.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. And I tend to forget things.
This is your dictionary.
It is. So it's like not only that, it's dated. It goes back to the day where I was, but I can kind of like remember, what I was seeing. And sometimes there's just visits.
You guys, this is a great way to not only remember where you were, but to record what you were feeling at the time. And it doesn't necessarily need to be on a sketchbook if you don't want to travel with a sketchbook. I mean, this is just a cardboard.
That's
so
right.
Easy. And you just send it to yourself. I mean, what an amazing, incredible idea. I love this.
And the other thing too, since I was a kid, I collect stamps. So I'm really into stamps as a designer, graphic designer.
Well, I was just going to say that because I think as a designer, graphic designer, you definitely are.
So there's a lot of things happen. This is my visit to the museum. So I save the ticket and then I try to not imitate it, but with my style and his style, try to, connect something.
For sure.
And this is in Barcelona. I mean, I can go on and on, but you get the idea. This is my son and me in Cancun.
Yeah, you look alike.
That's what they say.
You have the same characters.
Yeah. So I can come to this
it.
and then just if I need to, I can always come back to this and incorporate that.
I was just gonna. Okay, so and like the texture, the colors. Do you have an idea when you see a blank canvas what you're going to create? Do you have a color palette in mind, or how do you?
Yeah, and we're going to go through that. Sometimes I'm really into color, but not a lot of different colors. So it's working with 2 or 3 colors and shades of colors, and really try to make them work. And so sometimes it's the textures that how the pigments or the acrylic receive the color, and so you start getting different colors. Even if I presume that I know what's going to happen, I don't know. I have a general idea, and I let nature or whatever, the experimentation really happens. And so and if after 24 hours it dries and it's not what I like, that's what I was saying. I go back and I use things like this is my brush, metal brush, and I just go in and
scrape it off.
Scrape it off.
Yeah.
Or put gouache, or put oil, or put acrylics, or even spray cans.
Yeah.
In that I have certain control, and so I can do that. And then I use all kinds of tools. I use this, and I go in there and So I'm not afraid of
using of actually going in there and grinding it.
That's right. And so if you do a close-up of this, I'm not asking to do it, but if you look at it it's a wall in Mexico.
100%.
That went from
it's a DK,
right? With
wall.
layers and layers of paintings that and I like that. So you can see pieces of other paintings that is like pink and green, and so I might start doing layers of that at first. And then here, there was no brush. Sometimes I paint with my fingers. Sometimes I paint with my hands. Sometimes I paint with this tool that is just basically a piece of glass.
Yeah.
And I go in there.
Yeah.
And I will show you guys how I do it.
Yes. But look at the amount of work that he created in such a small amount of time. I mean, it is unbelievable that you really have an incredible body of work that you've created in such a short time. And I think that when you put your mind into it, you can just do it. You just show up and you start working and you do it. And I think that you found yourself again, Luis, in a way that maybe it was hidden for a while, and this is your personal true self coming back. What do you think? Well,
one, I think as a human person, I think all of us were frustrated with what we're going through with the situation that we are. And so I started going back to my friends. Like this is a whole series of friends, right? And how I remember them. And so some friends were when I was 10 years old, some other ones were when they're 18, but they all have very Mexican common nicknames. El Flaco, El Orejón, El Pataguada, you know, it's all these strange nicknames that when you're a kid or friends, you know.
Yeah.
And so I did a whole series of these. There are like 40 of those. This is my vaccination, my first vaccination.
Oh,
and so
look at that,
that's
you
the real, I document, and this is how I felt.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Someone just said, yes, reminds me of Tamayo. Yes,
Yeah.
great series,
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is just, I mean, I wish you guys were here so you can actually see the texture, but I'm hoping that I'm doing justice to it, because it is really, truly so refreshing and so, unique in a way, because I think it's taking us back to the masters in a way, but in a modern way. And that connection is so important to always look for that in our work. And I think that you have mastered that in a way that, you're very, very lucky that this artwork is coming through in a way that it's going to affect in such a positive way where we are now. I mean, it's really incredible.
Yeah. Let me share these with you because the
Yes.
subject matter changed. So I was talking about at this time, a year and a half ago when Trump became president 4 years ago, my subject matter was more about the border and migration. And me coming from Tijuana, I experienced that with friends and families coming from Nicaragua, Salvador. A lot of people from Tijuana are not from Tijuana. The majority of people are from Mexico and different parts of Mexico and Central America. They go there with the dream of crossing the border. So there was a lot about that. This is a mother looking for her son, how they separated that. This is a person in Tijuana looking at the border through this little hole. And so there's a lot of these, here's another one. He cannot see the border, but, you put this rooster. Remember that I was talking about the little rooster that I drew?
Yes,
It came from a drawing that I did when I was 4 years old. So it's, I'm very, like I was saying before, I was very influenced by and what makes these series really interesting is last time I was in Tijuana, I went to the border, right to the border, to the beach, and I grabbed sand from San Diego and then sand from Tijuana.
Oh,
and they're
my
mixed
gosh.
together with the sand. So this is literally talking about migration with the texture in it.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
incorporated with that. And so I do a lot of that. This is, and then, people, I started feeling very depressed with what was happening with the black movement, and the killings of African Americans in the United States. And it's just so sad. And so I wanted to, I went back to some of my paintings and put masks to them because of kids, this is a series of kids' drawings. This is called Niña con un ojo pero feliz, a little girl with one eye,
Yes.
but happy.
Yes.
And it's just a documentary that I saw of this little girl in Syria that lost an eye in the war. And but still, she was so happy and whatnot.
I love this one.
Yeah, I do a lot of just quick sketches on old paper, on old wood.
Yeah.
And then try to frame them like you were saying, like the masters,
Right,
like if it was a
right,
museum.
right.
And it just changed the whole value of things. So a lot of people are always concerned that is it going to fall apart and whatnot? And trust me, it won't. I study a lot the work of.
And you really have a limited palette that you use.
On each
one of them.
That's correct.
So and they're very complementary colors. In
Yep.
this case, you have the green and the reds, and they work so well together. And the value of the colors that you're using, the mark making, the composition, it has such an incredible language to it.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
We were talking about inspirations. This is 100% inspired by Chucho Reyes, Jesus Reyes. He was the guy who really influenced color and bringing color into architecture. He was a really good friend of Luis Barragan, and these colors and the gouache and the materials are really. I study the work of Jesus or Chucho Reyes, as it's known.
Yeah.
And he did a couple of. He's famous for doing roosters on thin paper.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do something that was very influenced. The colors, he used these incredible colors. That,
I just have to read you this comment that it's an amazing artistic expression of what's happening in our country. You know, talking about that series that you did.
No, and well, we're going to get into more.
We're going to get into
Yeah, this is specifically on COVID-19, the disease, and this is the early days when nobody knew what exactly it was, and so.
But it was prickly.
Yeah,
that's
it was
for
prickly,
sure.
Yeah, and this didn't have this face, so I added the face later, and I added this, and this is made out of glue, and it's this disease that is inside. And it was just the concern that we all had that if we were going to get it or not.
Wow. Okay.
Let's see. What else?
A lot more.
Yeah. You want to show down here my materials?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, like I said, I buy inexpensive, brushes from Home Depot, and I buy them by quantities. I buy different sands. I use a lot of pigments. These need to be ordered. These are from Italy, so I'm very limited with natural pigments.
And where do you buy those? Online?
Yeah, online.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different places.
And then you just mix it with water?
You can mix it with water, and I'll show you how I mix
Okay.
them. But yeah, there are different ways of utilizing. My whole life, I've done my own canvases. I just don't believe in buying them new. It's too expensive for me, and I'm afraid that I'm not going to do. I don't know. It's like when I was growing up, it was very traumatic for me to buy something that cost like $30, $40, and I wasn't happy with the painting. So I feel better when I build my own canvases, large ones. And if something happens, I know it only costs $4. That's my way of thinking. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, the materials are. This is what I use. These are my brushes, scrapers. I feel like more of a construction worker than anything else. But, this is what I utilize.
And this is all paint from Home Depot or hardware stores that you find cheap.
So don't buy it
spray
new.
Paint.
They always have a place in the back that people return because they don't like the colors.
Right.
And so if you buy this new, it's going to cost you $30. If you buy them when somebody returned it, it's going to cost you $4, $5, $6. And then I buy a lot of colors that I like, not knowing how I'm going to use them, and I just have them available whenever it's available.
Yeah.
And then the most inexpensive brushes.
Yeah, because you really dig them.
I destroy them. These are like 99 cents for 20.
Right. Exactly.
And then acrylics and whatnot.
And this is more bigger work that you've done.
Yeah.
And this work is, can you talk about this work?
Yeah, I mean, it's friends and people who were dying, and so I did a whole series of related two things: being inside, so you can see these people or these dead representation. It's inside of an environment, so this whole idea of being inside.
Yeah.
I was trying to document it. The three of them, you can see that there are inside.
I mean, but the color is spectacular, and I think that the absorption of the paints and the pigments that you're using, it really comes through in a much more vibrant way that even just using the paint out of the tube.
Oh no, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we see you can see all the scratches and everything that's coming through, but the color, the vibrant colors are just popping out of this incredible artwork. I mean, they really come out. I think pigment is a way to go too, right?
That's right. I mean, definitely, it's one way, in mixing it with the sand and all these different textures, and not being afraid of experimenting. I've used cement sometimes. Like I mentioned before, there was one time that I was traveling. I wanted to do something with texture, and I used ground coffee with glue, and it smelled beautiful, but it wasn't working that well. But still, I mean, it's just going for it.
Yes.
This is a whole series that's called Minneapolis 2020, and this is basically the riots in Minneapolis, and I wanted to document that and make sure that, because I mean, we were going through COVID-19, we were not being able to go out, and then we get,
our beautiful Minnesota, our beautiful Minneapolis,
and
all of a sudden
right here,
it's in our backyard.
And it happened in East Lake Street, that whole area. It's just, I have a lot of friends who have businesses. That's where our agency started, in Bloomington and East Lake Street in Mercado Central. So it's a lot of our clients, a lot of young Mexican entrepreneurs, their restaurants, they got burned, they got lost, they didn't have insurance. So it was very, for me, it was very traumatic. And so I started doing a whole series of making sure that I documented that, and just tried to see if I can get it out of my system. I haven't yet. I continue to do the subject matter of documenting what happened just a few miles from here. And everybody's connected with somebody who went through this. And so it's just that it became the neck of the explosion for all of us. And so next day, and so what I wanted to make sure, I've never done sculpture. I wanted to see if this can be translated to three-dimensional. And I did some quick mock-ups, and this is that scene that I removed the police and have those three people who were there documented. Thanks to them that they documented and did the video. And this is my gift to the people of Minneapolis. This can be reproduced in any way that people might need it. If they want to do it in larger scale or reproductions, it's free for anybody who's
it's so powerful, and it translates in such a incredible way, and that is something that, being an artist, I'm so proud of seeing fellow artists documenting what's happening in such an incredible way. And can you talk about how you made this patina look like it's actually...
Patina? Yeah. First, I try to actually make patina look like patina, and I wasn't getting lucky, Right. And I wanted that patina look, that bronze look. And went to the art store, and asked around. And yes, they sell this little material, and you put a copper, and then you put another material, and then you spray it, and in less than 4 hours, it dries like this.
Yeah,
so it's a kit that they sell to do this, and this is just foam core. So don't think it's the real thing. I made it look the real thing, but it's not.
I was not going to say anything.
No. It's foam core. And I was so cheap that I only did it in the front, and in the back, it's just I wasn't able to paint it because.
But that's the beauty of it, you guys. Look at this.
But,
look what you can do.
Yeah, it was more for me to trick my own eye to get into sculpture. And I really, now when I see them, every time I see them, I want this bigger. I want to make sure that it's documented, and that other generations never forget what happened. So for me, it's really important. My painting, it's never been political. Never. I'm not into political in any point, from any point of view, Republican or Democrat or this or that. I try to do my own personal experience, but for me, it was very traumatic. And seeing George Floyd asking for his mom when he was being killed, it was just incredible. And the outrage of the next days, and people going out and burning the place. I went and saw that, and what I've done is collected a lot of the burned materials. And so one of the things I do, I draw. And so this, from the buildings that got burned, is how I painted this whole series.
Wow.
And so it's basically charcoal. I mean, you can paint with this and draw with this. And so it's, I try to incorporate the materials based on the subject matter or the material. I'm very...
Well, I think that there was no way not to be connected to what happened. It was in our backyard. We were breathing and experimenting things that we never thought in our lifetime we would be, feeling or living. And, we live in a state where we've never had this before happen. And so I think our lives will forever be changed. I hope that we all learn from this and we all listen so we can be better. And we can move in a more peaceful way, and and by you doing this, it's a small part on hopefully healing. Mm-hmm. We all need to heal right now.
Yeah, big times, and I'm almost selfish. I do it for myself first because I need to get it out of my system. That it's available for anybody who needs that too.
And yes, it's definitely, I can see the Picasso, the Guernica, it's definitely influenced by all your work.
It's my small Guernica, right?
Yes.
Me understanding that Picasso went through that too,
Yes.
And that's the actual sketch.
So I'm just showing you guys because...
I just wake up one night and I did this quick sketch. And if you look at it, it's literally...
Yeah, it's that.
Right?
Yeah, wow.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
And then I just grabbed that charcoal from the buildings.
Wow.
And incorporated some of the...
So I'm going to go the other side of the table because now we have maybe 5 more minutes to do a little demo and then we'll open it up for questions.
So you were saying my influence of color.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so sometimes I do have an idea, and it's like, I saw this, building in Yucatan or Oaxaca, whatever. But I bring pieces, right? And so here's an inspiration. These are Christmas ornaments.
Bells.
They're handmade. Yeah. But it's the colors and the patina and everything that it has and how it was painted with the brushes and very loose, and that becomes the inspiration for a color. Right? Or the theme. And so I limit myself.
Before we go there,
sorry.
Very important. So Luis is incredibly, we're incredibly fortunate that he's donating these 2 pieces for Feeding America. So they are for sale today. Each one is $200. And, for each one will be, imagine if you buy $400, it will be 4,000 meals that you will be providing today for Feeding America. So if you feel like you want to contribute and help people that are in such need of food right now, please consider buying this incredible artwork by Louise Fitch. You can DM me or Luis directly, and we'll let you know how you can make that donation directly to Feeding America. But we're asking $200 for each one. They're 8x10. They're mixed media, and they have they're on this canvas panels, and very easy to frame, and they're just incredible. If you can see, it has so much texture on them. And it's just incredible. So please DM me or Luis for...
You want to come this side or do you want to go on the back?
I'll go on that side. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So what I'm going to show you is going to be so simple. You're going to go, so that's how you do it. It took me years and years to this simplicity. So
okay.
So basically, I can paint on wood.
Okay.
If needed. So this is... literally a piece of my studio. See?
Yep.
So I can paint directly in a piece of that, like that, or if you go to the art store and buy real materials. In this case, this is the real thing. And then, like I mentioned before, the inexpensive paint.
Oh, wow.
And I let it breathe, so it becomes thicker. And then, don't be afraid. Grab some of that, put it in.
Yummy.
Right?
Yes. Wow.
And then I have a bunch of these little towels here. And then if you want to have more texture, it's up to you. You can, I use this if needed. You can
damp it.
Do your own thing or not do it. It's up to you. In this case, I'm doing that. Then, today, because it was a special occasion, I cleaned the floor. And this is the residuals of all that. So we're going to use this sand from a bunch of other projects.
Thank you for cleaning for me.
Yeah, and this is what I do. And you can do as much as you want to.
It's baking, you guys.
Basically, right? And then, want to make sure that you remove
Luis Fitch is his name. Fitch.
And let it dry if that's what you want. Or, like I mentioned before, start messing around with it. In my case, this is what I do.
my gosh, looks amazing. Do you let it dry then?
You let it dry if you want to. In my case, I do let it dry.
Because then you add the pigment, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. If you guys have questions, please start asking them. Well, we see.
And so when you let it dry, you get this.
Okay.
So now it's dry.
Now it's dry.
And then you can do this way and paint over it, or you can get charcoal and do your thing again. Right? Because I don't know how to do hands, I do this. These are my hands.
So, Louise, where can we find your work? Where can we find?
You can. There's a couple of places. You can go this type of work, what I call my personal work.
Yes.
You can go to louisefitchart.com.
Okay.
LUISFITCH art.com. For my graphic work related more to Day of the Dead and licensing work and that kind of stuff, you can go to louisefitch.com.
Okay, perfect.
And then for communications and design, unobranding.com. So I got 3 websites.
And I will post them all under this interview. If you guys have questions, ask them right now because we have 4 more minutes. And just remember that this incredible artwork is going to be for sale today. And the money will go to Feeding America. So make sure that you DM me or Louise for more details. And you know, this is, I mean, I'm just coming on this side so we can see it the right side up. But, you know, this is already, starting to.
Don't worry.
I already did something.
Don't worry. You thought it was
Collaborate. We're collaborating, people.
Yeah, I mean, you can start doing your thing. So really, this is a fresco.
Right.
It's a fresco because you're painting on a fresco, right?
Yep.
It's a fresco, and you can continue painting, and you can draw. In my case, limited. You know, if you start putting a little bit of color into it, you start getting this. Picking up a little bit of layers and color. So there's a lot of ways that you can build it up, or you can let it dry.
And you like to use gouache and acrylic mainly?
In winter, yes.
Yeah.
But in now that it's spring and I can have my studio open and go outside, I use oils.
Oils or spray paint too.
Spray paint and any toxic things, I do it outside. But yeah, I'm not afraid of mixing it. I love oils. That's how since I was a kid, it's oils. But acrylics, I water them down a lot because if not, it looks too plasticky.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. Well, what an incredible, amazing treat for us to be here together. And yes, he paints with such ease, and he's a true maestro. And I'm so happy that he is here with you guys and that you're getting to meet an incredible maestro artist, friend of mine. Thank you, Louise, for an incredible hour.
Thank you for what you're doing, too.
We had such an incredible time together here. So consider again buying and being part of this incredible movement of Tap Into Your Creativity and my Army of Artists. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you for having me. I feel
we'll
blessed.
see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay.